Hey, welcome to the Coaching for Life webinar. We're continuing the Cultivate the Heart series. This one is stage 3, which is on discernment, making choices, and one of the questions we have for authority is how well are we discerning things around us and showing discernment as we lead our program. So welcome to the webinar. We're excited. Wade and Lou here with you. And Lou, this will be a great topic today, isn't it?
I think this is among the most critical of all, Wade.
Well, yeah, we're looking forward to getting into this. So let's introduce what we want to go over here real quick. Why cultivate the heart? The ultimate goal is to cultivate the heart of those around us is obviously to build a foundation for healthy relationships and performance. I think it's the goal of every team, every classroom, every business, every family, to have a strong, lasting foundation that we're living out healthy relationships and we're getting outcomes in the performance we're looking for of excellence. So the 6 questions for those in authority are right here: honor, safety, discernment, relationships, excellence, and joy. And today we're going to cover number 3, which is their discernment. Is in your program, in what you are doing, are you constantly teaching right from wrong? These are 6 questions that we would ask those in authority, a parent, a coach, a leader, a teacher, as you run your classroom, your team. These are 6 great questions to filter what you are doing and evaluate yourself if you're doing things right, and give you a healthy balance, healthy perspective, to kind of give you a guideline to say, hey, are we doing what's right?
And today we want to hear too that for every time there's a conflict and tension in a relationship, it has to do with one of these 6 critical areas, whether we understand it or not. And the more we grasp this, the better we'll be able to analyze our own issues and bring them to healthy conclusions.
Well, that's great. Well, let's jump into this and get into it. Discernment. The definition of discernment that we've come up with is the ability to make wise decisions or choices that reflect the heart of authorities and the needs of others. So I think this has 2 critical parts of it. Well, more than 2, obviously, but when it talks about it reflects the heart of you as a coach, that you are making decisions, and then it is also based on the needs of others. That's where I see kind of a big disconnect, Lou. With coaching, with leaders, sometimes we're so into doing what we want to do, we don't even consider the needs of others in our decision making.
And that's why we often have tension or reaction to some of our choices, because we haven't taken into perspective a large enough frame of reference. Obviously, there are people who have sacrificed significantly, who have been our authorities, to give us the opportunity to make decisions. And then, of course, there are others who are looking to us or bearing the consequence or the blessing of the kind of choices we make.
And Lou, you want to just jump in a little bit on why? I mean, I think wisdom has kind of almost become like a lost word in our culture. Our days are filled with decisions. Our days are filled with choices. Everything we do, we choice what we eat, where we go, where we drive, what we do, a choice to work hard, a choice in our attitude, a choice, all day long. But as a coach, a choice to, in my practice, to say something, to not say something, to teach something. But wise. Why is wise in there before decision?
I think that's very critical. You know, we've picked up this model about growing in wisdom, stature, favor with God and men, about these 4-fold aspects, about our physical needs and our conscionable issues, our spirit, and, of course, our relationships. We're very much a part of these things. So the wisdom is the fruit of looking beyond our own nose, looking beyond ourselves. We're a very self-gratifying people and a very self-gratifying society. And it's because of that we tend to make foolish, short-term, self-centered, self-protective choices. And in order to make wise choices, we need to look further to the long-range outcome of this year, this generation, generations to come. And that's what I'll say. This kind of decision, these kind of values really hold up. And I want my children and my grandchildren to be making these kind of value choice decisions.
One of the best definitions I think I've ever heard of wisdom was it's the ability to apply knowledge correctly. You think, in just taking a look at sports, we teach a kid a skill every day, teach him a new technique, so he has new knowledge of a certain situation, a read he might need to make, or a decision he has to make on the field or the court. The issue is now that he has that knowledge, does he now have the wisdom to apply that correctly? By doing so, it takes his game to another level. It lessens mistakes. It fits into a play. Right decisions. When a group of people make right decisions, things run so much better. So when you look at discernment as a coach, not just in the physical realm of running a play or a technical skill, where, I am coming out and giving you a play and showing you how to do it. I'm teaching you how to do that. I'm seeing the needs of my players and the roles of who fits where on this play and what we need to go after. As we're doing this, I'm making wise decisions that reflect my heart as a coach, what I want as a coach, and I'm considering the needs of my players, and I'm teaching them how to do things right or wrong, just from the sports standpoint. Just from the academic standpoint, a teacher can be doing this, whether it's a math problem and taking them through the steps to get a formula down pat. An English teacher can do the same with structures of sentences, and they can have discernment to teach what is right and know their students. So maybe I need to share it a little bit differently with this kid. So as a coach, this is the first realm, it's just in the body, it's physical realm, and I just, showing discernment, and I'm able to teach what's right and wrong. So I can have things be correct and great decisions on and off the field. But we want to get way past that, don't we, besides just the physical realm. And so the issue at hand here, I think, as leaders, is are we teaching right from wrong, and are we making wise decisions? And Lou, if you look at
illustration of this, Wade, is I could be riding two colts, young colts. They both are spooked by, say, a tarp or something that startles them. The one colt will see the object that frightens him, and he'll buck and run off because he doesn't check in with his authority. The other colt will see the issue and check in with the authority and work through it and have a successful response.
So basically, you're looking at a kid in all of a sudden a basketball situation, all of a sudden the press is on. And the kid turns around after a made basket, and all of a sudden there's the press. And there's the panic. And does he go back to the things the coaches taught him? Are they prepared? Are they ready? Or do they freak out and panic and dribble into trouble and make a bad pass? And that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yep. And the clearer we make these choices. Now, we really have a reaction in our culture about calling things right and wrong. But the clearer we make these choices, the healthier people will be and the more confident they will be making in the decisions, because they'll know what really works to a good conclusion, what brings good results in the long run.
I think it's also really important, the fact that, as I look at this, as coaches, we need to ask ourselves these two great questions, because if I give you my kid to play for you, are you going to teach him right from wrong? Are you going to teach him the right skills? Are you going to teach him the game? And are you going to make wise decisions in the midst of your season, your team, that are going to develop my son or daughter, or is it going to be decisions that will wound my son and daughter? And it's absolutely key is that we're making great decisions. So, Lou, let's talk and get into the nuts and bolts of this, is how to make good decisions. Obviously, the first and foremost is to gather data and facts from reliable sources. Another word for reliable could be trustworthy, could be faithful, could be dependable, could be... And this is absolutely key, isn't it?
Well, I heard it once said that a president is no better than his cabinet. He is directly reflective of the kind of men and women that surround his or her life that give them the information, because we only make decisions according to the data that we receive. So if you have a filter that filters out certain information before you even get it, then you don't, or filters out good information, you only get bad information to work with, unreliable information. If you have a filter that filters out the unreliable data and only gives you trustworthy information, then you make a healthier choice. So, though we may not know the person, we often know the person by the kind of sources they gather their data from. That's true with newspapers across the board. That certain newspapers are known to be reliable or reporting areas because they check their data. Others that gather scam and gossip or whatever are known to be scandalous magazines because they never have reliable sources.
Well, that's so true. So today, when you look at whether it's just trying to scout a team, to prepare your team for a game, you're gathering data and facts from was your scout good, was the guy taking notes on the film good, were we dissecting things correctly, were we listening, some coach might tell you one thing about another team, was that a reliable source? For things from fans. So it's one thing that you're getting the data and the facts correct on your own team. It's another thing is like when issues come up with our team. A kid could be accused of cheating in a class, or issues come up between two players, the parental issues. Then you have, this is very important when you're dealing with conflict, correct? Because you've got to take your time here to get reliable sources, listen to both sides of the story, and then try to make decisions.
We never trust a scientific outcome if there's not a certain criteria by which they do their studies or analysis. And they have certain objectivities that they adhere to strictly across the board to make sure that the results are trustworthy. And that's true in any factor of life, but especially in the area of sport or parenting or whatever. Even hearing a tattletale from one child to another, you have to wait a minute. Can I act on this? And it's easy to do, or do I need to go back and make sure I gather the data?
And then, Lou, when we talk about kind of what do I do with this stuff, so, the proverb is be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. We live in a very reactionary society today. In the sports realm, we live in a very reactionary where we can tend to do the other two first before we are quick to hear. The issue of anger, why does that seem to come out a lot when things don't go well?
Well, I like the emphasis here on being slow to speak and slow things. It doesn't say that things won't provoke you. It doesn't say that you shouldn't speak. But it means to be, make sure you have right information to act on before you make a fool out of yourself. And, of course, it compares slow with quick even more than it does speaking and hearing. But hearing is the information of, number one, valuing a source. Number two is making sure that you're hearing and perceiving it in the correct way and confirming it to make sure you can act on it.
And you can only act.
Is an immediate speaking and anger are immediate evidences of conclusions that are improperly and quickly drawn upon that are probably not only not correct, they're devastating and cause rippling effects for many years to come sometimes.
So because of our belief system, because of our worldview, we could be snapping and saying things without even getting facts.
Well, one is self-centered, speaking to defend ourselves or to come to our judgment, and anger to place responsibility on others. That's self-centered. Hearing is obviously thinking about others more than ourselves. And it's making sure we understand before we demand the right to be understood.
Well, one of the keys here is we can only make the decisions with the data and facts we have at the time.
That's absolutely right. And so sometimes you get information that sounds true, and somehow it doesn't seem to fit with the character of the person that this report's coming from. The other day I got some information, and they gave me a certain figure. I said, man, that doesn't sound right. But the person said, oh, no, it's correct. But I thought, I'm not getting the right information. I'm not asking the right questions. So, in fact, and I probed a little bit more, and they were a little bit offended that I probed a little bit more. Finally, I realized we just weren't communicating clearly, that there were two different categories, and they were giving me the summation of those two categories rather than the individual parts. And so there was this potential reaction based on what I thought was misinformation.
Oh, what's interesting is, we can only deal with what we know right now that's in front of us. And, once the thing is finished, I mean, if you could have a football game with a big play, it's 3rd and 17, and you run a certain pass play, but it's amazing on Monday, the Monday morning quarterback. After the thing is done, the game is over, everybody has new data, everybody has new facts. But you can't, we have to learn from our past, but we only can make decisions of what we know that's right in front of us, of how to make good choices. So what is the other way we want to
study another team? We study our opponents because we're hearing, we're taking in, we're observing the kind of strengths or weaknesses that team has. In particular, we don't want to be embarrassed on the field that night and having not understood who our opponent is.
So we talked about good decisions. Well, how do you make poor choices and decisions? First, you gather data and facts from unreliable sources. And then when you look at the proverb, the opposite of the proverb, instead of being slow to hear, you're quick to speak in anger and slow to hear.
I always like it, Wade, when your kids will say, well, everybody says, well, everybody's doing it. Well, they all say this. And you say, well, who are they? And usually they have no sources or they have nothing concrete, but they want to influence you through the momentum of majority when there really is only maybe one or two other opinions.
Well, it just shows that the difference between good choices and bad choices, the real issue here is where we get in our information from, our data, our facts, so that we have stuff that's reliable, that we're trusting others to make good decisions. And when you see bad decisions, usually it comes from this source, doesn't it?
Well, here's a really frightening fact. Unreliable, irresponsible information is usually offered free of charge. It's given to you immediately. A lie, somebody tells a lie, a tattletale comes, or somebody has an anger issue, they come immediately and give you the information. But to find a reliable source, you often have to go out there and find it. They say that there are about 6 major complainers to every senator on a negative bill. But there are a lot of people that really support the bill who don't speak up, and you've got to go out there and solicit that kind of response. But those aren't the people that offer it irresponsibly.
So 3 key areas to determine whether we're making good choices. This is a filter to kind of work through in the outcome of our decisions throughout the day. Number 1 is truth, then 2 is relationships, and 3 is the outcome. You want to touch on this real quick, Lou?
Well, truth obviously bears witness to the things that speak to our heart. They speak to generations. They speak to the faith-based sources that are reliable and true. Relationships are parallel. They deal with other people. They deal with how it fits with my authorities, my peers, and my subordinates. And they watch the long-term outcome of whether it builds harmony, it builds momentum, it builds responsibility, it builds trust, it builds confidence, and a satisfaction we've done the right thing.
Well, it's key, obviously, number 1, to find out get the facts and data right. So are we being truthful with what we have at the time? Because there's been times in my life where what I currently had was I thought was right, and I ended up speaking the truth, and to find out later the information might have been wrong because it got corrected or something else came out later, and all of a sudden you realize, my gosh, that was wrong back then, but at the moment I was sharing the information I currently had. You can get a player who comes back from the doctor and currently he's cleared to play, and then find out later when another test is done that he should never have played, and all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I should have never played him that night. And you can look back, but at the moment that's the decision we made. Or they say you shouldn't be playing them, and all of a sudden I am playing them. I'm not dealing with truth here. And then all of a sudden my relationship, I'm going to put this player in harm's way by playing him too early because of the injury, and the outcome could be what? A season-ending injury, a lawsuit these days. You put a kid out who had a concussion and you play him again too early. I mean, there's so many issues today, but if you take our decisions and choices we're making with truth, relationships, and outcome, it helps us. This is a great filter to walk through to see if we're making good decisions.
In accounting, we call it doing due diligence. We want to check the figures laterally and vertically, make sure that both columns settle to the right conclusion. You sure don't want to present a report to the board, or you don't want to present a proposal to the board that has not gone through the filter of being examined by several different perspectives, and make sure that the tally or the proposal is correct, because that's when people say, well, I can rely on your report, or I can make a healthy choice now based on your information. But if you're presenting a proposal or a PowerPoint presentation and they ask questions and you don't have the answers to, or your misinformation leads them to distrust you, they aren't going to buy in. So now you've wounded your relationship in the future, and you're not likely to get the sales or the outcome or the future trust that you need. So getting your information right is extremely important. And then relationships, it needs to prove that this isn't just about you. It's about the values of others, the needs of others, and you prove that this builds honor to my parents, or it builds confidence before my coach, or it builds good relationships laterally. And the outcome of that is a well-playing team, it's community support, or it's family harmony, those kinds of things that are really important.
Now, one of the problems, though, is you look at today's culture and you look in sports, a lot of teams are getting their outcome. They're winning games. But the others who aren't at all.
Whatever it takes to win is a justifiable source, and that's not true. Because it doesn't bear the fruit in the relationships down the road where they really trust the coach. It doesn't bear long-term values that make this man or this woman an excellent parent or an excellent spouse. So though it's winning, and these are ways to win through drugs or whatever the case is, or cheating, winning is not necessarily true. They have to win by the right standards. They have to play by the rules, or else they'd be disqualified, and wound the relationships or embarrass their community as the outcome.
Because you could see teams that have won championships and later be put on probation for cheating or cutting the corners, and all of a sudden that brings shame. People are ashamed of what happened. It brings dishonor, not honor, and so forth. So the balance of the three is extremely important. We've talked about this a lot, Lou, about becoming a 3D or a three-dimensional coach, and that we're always focused on these three areas. So we could take what we just talked about and put them back into this thing that as a coach I'm always looking for behavior performance, which is the game. I'm always looking for attitude, which is community, it's relationships. And I'm looking for heart, which is really the next generation. And those three things of outcome, relationship, and truth fit in here just perfect. And as a coach, the decisions I'm making throughout the day and practice on the bus, to play a kid, to not play a kid, my substitutions, everything I'm doing as a coach are my decisions enhancing behavior and performance? Is it helping shape the attitude and the teamwork and relationships around the team? And is it developing the heart and the character of the next generation in truth? And so as a coach, as I'm making decisions, these are three key points that go through everything we do in coaching for life that, it gives you that, what am I really after, what am I really, digging for to get down to the heart. Any thoughts on the slide?
Well, it's so pivotal in everything we do. A man came the other day and he was complaining about something, and he gave the impression that certain things had to be complied with in order to be right, and it sounded so good. It sounded like he was just right down the alley, except that he was the primary benefactor of the information he was giving. And so I said, this doesn't smell right. I know legally this should all be in place and that these things sound right, but I said, we need to go back and check the government. We need to check the standards of practice, because I think this man is exaggerating this. And he was really jealous of the fact that he didn't get the project. He didn't get the bid. And so he was using the government and the regulations to leverage his opinion and saying, basically, if you don't hire me to do this job, you're going to be in violation, and I'm going to report you for a bad report. And so we went back, we checked the information, and we realized, this was not a trustworthy information. This was not a trustworthy man, even though he had all the right context and all the right authority. And so when we were able to take that responsibility ourselves and do the right thing, well, the outcome was saving a lot of money and still doing the right job with the right outcome, and standing against a bully or intimidator who really was a false salesperson.
Because you could see this on your team. You could see a player, a great athletic, talented player, where he gets you the outcome in the game. But if his attitude isn't right, and he doesn't treat his teammates well, and there is no truth here that as he moves on to the next generation, what is that kid going to pass on in his life? And the opportunity we have as coaches and leaders to impact that kid is so huge, because we can't settle anymore for just the game. There's got to be more.
Wade, one of my assistants brought a horse to me the other day, and she said, I don't trust this horse. She hadn't gotten on the horse yet. I said, you shouldn't trust him. He looks like he's got it all right, but he's not. And so I said, let me have him. And I worked him, and when I poked the right buttons, boy, he got explosive in his attitude, and he was unsafe to ride. His behavior was unusable. So I went back and I worked with him until he got more honest. He got his anger out. He worked on it. He made the right steps. He became more in harmony with me. And eventually that assistant said, wow, I didn't know all that was in there. Now he's trustworthy. And his behavior, she could see by his behavior that he had definitely made a change.
Because the choices that you made yesterday has made you who you are today. And that's what is key with decisions is, are we learning from our past? I mean, some people constantly just, we think choices come through experience, but people make bad choices all the time. People with a lot of experience continue to make bad choices. The question is, are we learning from our past? And the choices you make today will determine who you'll be tomorrow. So with what we have at the time, may we make good decisions because we're really impacting tomorrow. So the conclusion of this bottom line is that our choices produce patterns. We produce patterns of character and who we are as a person. And Lou, any final thoughts on discernment?
Well, I think that it's the very issue, how other people describe us or characterize us is a reflection of the kind of consistent choices we make. The kind of consistent choices we make are based on the values that we have in our heart. And they're really made about the beliefs of who I really am serving, myself, others, those kind of things. Do I have divine design, or doesn't it matter at all what I do with my life? Do I have an appointment with my life? And playing with that kind of confidence makes a whole different frame of reference for the kind of confident decisions we'll make throughout life and how we'll be satisfied with the results that come.
Well, it's absolutely key that may we be one who is showing discernment, one that is making right decisions, because it does produce a pattern of something people see again and again of who we really are. Really appreciate you being on the webinar of Discernment, the Cultivate the Heart series. We want to continue to encourage you to be that coach, to make great decisions, to continue to teach the difference between right and wrong, and develop those that have been entrusted to you around, in your program. So, thank you very much for being part of the Coaching for Life webinar. Remember, we're coaching for life.
Not just a season.
Have a good one, folks.